Hello, my name is Antje. I'm the Special Collections Curatorial Assistant at New College Library this year, and I would like to introduce you in this episode of Curator's Choice to one of my favorite manuscripts from our collection, which is New College Library Manuscript 266. It's got about 200 or so leaves of parchment, and the text contained in this is the Confessio Amantis, the Lover's Confession, which is a Middle English poem by John Gower. John Gower is one slightly lesser known contemporary of Chaucer, so we're talking turn of the 15th century here. He completed his work in 1390 and died in 1408. The poem survives in 59 different manuscripts, and New College actually owns 2 of these. This is the older of our 2 manuscripts. It was made in London in the very early 15th century, so potentially even within Gower's lifetime. We know the names of several of the previous owners, potentially even the first owner who may have commissioned it, because they scribbled their names into the margins of various leaves, like here in one of the final folios. The manuscript itself came to the college nearly 200 years later, after it was made, in 1584 as one of several manuscripts as a bequest by one of the fellows of the college, a Thomas Martin, who also signed his name very prominently right on here on the first leaf. And on the first leaf you can also see the manuscript number 266 written very prominently up here, and that it was stamped with the college library stamped. This was some time ago. We certainly don't do this anymore, especially not to 600-year-old manuscripts. As you can see from the page I've opened here, the manuscript is quite lavishly illustrated, so it's a real work of art. It was made with care and at quite some expense. It's written in 2 columns, in a very neat and professional script called Anglicana Formata, and the same scribe also added some tiny but no less neat and perfectly legible annotations in Latin in the margins. And throughout the manuscript you find these beautiful illuminated initials in blue and pink and gold, with these half borders or even full borders of floral sprays. Some of them go across the entire top and bottom margin. Ours is also one of only 2 manuscripts of the text which is not just illuminated, like here, but also illustrated with a large number of exquisite miniatures, or rather it was at some point, because time and some of the previous owners have not been kind to manuscript 266. We don't know exactly when, but at some point nearly half of the miniatures, as well as a number of the large initials, have been quite neatly but also quite ruthlessly cut out, like this one. The manuscript was also stored in some damp and dirty conditions at some point, so it has water and mold stains, and some of the remaining miniatures, like this one, are quite smudged, so you can hardly tell what it was once supposed to show. Someone did take pity at some point and try to fix the damage, though not entirely successfully. Apparently one of the cut-out miniatures was recovered at some point, so they tried to sew it back into place. They didn't do a particularly good job, but at least they saved another miniature from being lost. The potentially same person also tried to reattach this ripped page, and again didn't do a particularly good job, because the rip is far too close to the gutter, so it was kind of a bit of a failure. Right, but let's have a look at one of the miniatures which has survived mostly intact, and the well-known story that it illustrates. So the Lover's Confession is called so because that is what's happening. You've got a frame narrative with 2 main characters: the aging, despairing lover who makes confession to the chaplain of Venus, and in classic Catholic tradition he's prompted to confess his sins, how he committed the 7 deadly sins, pride, envy, wrath, etc. in his love affairs. And the poem devotes one whole book to each of these cardinal sins. This is the beginning of book 4 on sloth, which in the context of courtly love is, as a sin, manifests itself as procrastination, tardiness, hesitation, and especially delay. To give an example of this delaying, the Confessor tells a story from classical mythology. The Trojan hero Aeneas, who is on his way to found Rome, stops in Carthage, and he and Queen Dido fall in love. But he's forced to continue his journey to Rome and delays returning so long that the lovesick Dido despairs of his return and kills herself. Our miniature here shows Aeneas, slightly smudged, riding away on his horse, while Dido, up in the tower, kills herself with a sword, just as the narrative tells you. Thus vann she sich nån other båte, recht evene, und to ihre härte rote, a naked svärd, anon she threste, and thus she got herself arrested, in remembrance of all slowe. Unlike poor Dido here, our manuscript 266 is something of a survivor. It certainly has a story of its own to tell. Despite being battered by time and neglect and vandalism, it has endured to this day, and though its leaves may be smudged and ripped, most of its beautiful gold shines as brightly today as it did 600 years ago.